Hey, welcome to Barn Tech. Today I'm going to be changing the evaporator core in my 2009 F250. Now this is about a 3-day job and I want to keep the video under 30 minutes. So we're just going to hit the highlights, but let's get going. I noticed a couple of weeks ago that my air conditioner wasn't working as well as it had been. And so I added a little bit of refrigerant to it and it started working. But I noticed later that day, the next day, that it had a refrigerant smell. I don't know how to describe that other than it smells like cold metal. So I've smelled that smell before. Seems like every time I get a truck that's about 10 years old, evaporator core goes out. Why is he pulling his seats out to change the AC evaporator? Well, that's because the dash has to come out and I'm working by myself. And so it'd be a lot easier for me to just pull the dash forward a little bit than it would be for me to pull the dash all the way out by myself. Plate, kick panel. All right, I need to get the side of the dash out here so that I can get to the bolts that are behind that. All right, come to the other side. Up there for a minute and go do the other side. All right, next thing I've got to do is get this bolt off of the steering knuckle. Okay, the next thing I've got to do is get these 10mm bolts. There's a couple of them here and some on the other side there. I went ahead and hooked on a swivel and some more extensions because I don't want to break my windshield. There just wasn't enough room to get the ratchet to turn while it was up in there. So there were 2 bolts on that side, on the driver's side, and there's only 1 bolt on the passenger side. And I'm just going ahead and pulling the bolts all the way out and letting them fall to the ground. I can pick them up later. All right, there's another 10mm bolt right there. All right, there's also an electrical connector right up here by the gas pedal. Gotta flip this thing up. Pop that electrical connector out. And there's another electrical connector right by it. Ow! Okay. Okay. Got the emergency brake loose. This little clip's supposed to slide off. There. Little tabs go in, and this thing slides out. There we go. All right, shifter cable's out, ready to go through the floor. All right, next up I'm going to pull the 2 10mm bolts that are holding this side of the dash on. I'm going to leave this bolt hanging just a little bit until I get all the bolts broke free on the other side of the truck. You gotta love Ford. They put 1 bolt in here inside the door where you can only get to it with a swivel. The hardest part's trying to get it out without damaging the paint on the edge of the door. All right, of course that bolt dropped down in there, so I'll have to fish that out later. But for now, let me get out these last 3 bolts that are holding the dash on. Interesting, as I was digging around in here, I saw some wires that didn't look like they belonged. I found a low jack in my truck. Okay, I went inside to charge a GoPro battery and I came back out to this. Hopefully nothing broke when it collapsed itself down, but I guess we'll find out as we go. Looks like this is the only connector on the driver's side that I didn't unplug. Kind of hard to do this with one hand. There it goes. It's a lot easier to see which electrical cables to get out of the way once you got the dash down. All right, there are 4 electrical connectors plus the antenna. All right, now I'm glad that I got the seat out of the way. So I should be able, ouch. Should be able to just swing the dash as much as I need. All right. Now I think I can get this air box out and I'll just leave the dash sitting right where it is. In one of his most famous sermons, Jesus said, "Love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, and pray for those who mistreat you." That is so backwards from what the world says today. Okay, so I've got my evaporator connections right here. I guess the next obvious thing to do is get these clips off of here so my refrigerant lines will come loose. Now I don't have to worry about refrigerant here because all my refrigerant escaped. All right, filter dryer is in a plastic case here. It's held on with 2 10mm nuts. Those 10mm were actually a little bit loose. So I'm not sure if somebody has recently been in here or what. All right, got to get this electrical connector from the top of the filter dryer. All right, that's a 2-hand connector, but this tab here goes out instead of in. Got to get this nut off here, get this filter dryer disconnected. Okay, that ought to protect that hose. Keep it from getting trash in it. Stick it out of the way. Okay, I got one of these forward fitting disconnection things in there. It took the 7/8 inch one to get the big side of the filter dryer. I think I've got that pushed up in there. So I should be able to twist and pull on this hose. There it goes. That's that 7/8 inch tool I was telling you about. Oh, lime green. All right, I snaked the filter dryer up from the top. Now I got to get this 5/8 inch thing in here on this second connector to the evaporator. Okay, just about got it. Okay, now put some tape over this one too so that it doesn't get trash in it. I don't have caps to put on these, and I've about run out of time for the night. I'm gonna have to come back tomorrow and finish. I just want to get this where it'll stop dripping. Get it out of the way. I took this 11mm nut off from underneath one of the studs that was holding up the filter dryer. I pulled this 11mm bolt out from right next to where the evaporator connections were. One right up there. You have to go under the truck, and it's on the driver's side of the transmission up high. On the firewall right next to the passenger side up pipe is the last 11mm nut that's holding that air box onto the firewall. I also got this nut from the inside that's holding on the housing. So let's see if this thing will come out now. we go. Well, good morning. It's a new day. Let's go ahead and take this thing apart and see if I was right. Hopefully we're going to find an oil stain on this evaporator core. Before I can get to that, looks like I need to take the heater core out of the way. Looks like this blower housing has to come off to get the heater core out. Alright, blower housing out of the way. Alright, 3 screws on this part. Okay. The moment of truth is upon us. Yep, there we go. There's my leak right there. So let's get this cleaned up and get the new evaporator core put in. Okay, I picked up this new evaporator core off of Amazon. I compared it to my old evaporator core and it looks exactly the same. So I carefully pulled this insulator piece off of the old evaporator core, and I'm going to put that on the new one here. A little tab through there. One thing I see, it looks like these pipes may have gotten bent a little bit in shipping. They're a little bit closer to the evaporator than the old one. So I'll just have to do a little adjusting on those. Okay, so what I figured out, I had to put the evaporator core in first, could not, and I attached this. I put the heater core in, but I did not attach this. Put the fan shroud on, then I came back and attached this, put all the screws in the fan shroud, and now this will be the last part to go on, the cover for the evaporator core. 6 screws and the evaporator core will be in, and it'll be time to put the air box back in the truck. All right, here we come with the air box again. I went ahead and vacuumed the firewall. Pull out the screws here. I like to keep screws in the hole they come out of so I know where they go back to, if I can. It's not always practical, but okay. I got the pipes going through the firewall, but now I just gotta find the holes and get the studs started in the holes. All right, got that side started. I'll go ahead and stick the nut on this stud so I don't lose it. I got the lower left stud in. That looks like I got all the studs in. So I got the inside fasteners in place now. That ought to hold it while I slide underneath and put the fasteners from underneath. I was talking bad about Ford earlier for choosing a different size nut for the air box. But now that I've taken the air box off, I'm kind of glad they did that, because that was a good clue which bolts I needed to take out to get the air box out. All right, now as much as I want to get this dash put back in now, I think I'm going to shift and work under the hood for a minute and finish up all the stuff under the hood, and then I'll come back to the interior. I went ahead and brought this hose out here to get the gaskets off. It's a little easier to work with out here. little bit of PAG oil on the new O-rings. Slid the new O-rings on here and gonna stick the small hose in its place. Pull that little cap out. All right, so I pushed and wiggled until I heard a click. So now I know that's in there. I'm gonna put this little clip back on. Okay. Now let's work on the filter dryer. All right, I went ahead and put the plastic case on the filter dryer, put the 4 clips on it that hold the plastic case together. So just a little bit, oh, too much. It's actually not that big of a deal to snake it in as long as we've got the heater hoses out. Don't forget to pull this sensor off of the old filter dryer. Just screws onto the Schrader here on the top. See if this plugs onto it. There we go. I think I'm going to hook up my water hoses next. So let's pull the tape off. That did its job, kept me from getting trash inside of there. Let's see which hose wants to go where. There it goes, I heard the click. I heard a click there. Give them a little tug to make sure they're on. Okay, now this last AC hose, before I put this one on, I'm going to do 2 things. One, I'm going to put a new O-ring on it because, well, I got a new O-ring and I might as well put it on there. And 2, I'm going to measure some PAG oil and pour it down inside of the hose here. I got a chart from O'Reilly Auto Parts that tells me how much oil I need to put in for replacing the evaporator and how much oil I need to put in for replacing the filter dryer. So I'm going to add those up and I'm going to pour that much oil into this hole right here. There's 3 different kinds of PAG oil, and PAG 46 is the one that belongs in this truck. So that's 1 ounce for the filter dryer and 1.5 ounces for the evaporator. So that converts out to 74 milliliters, which just happened to be the only way I could measure it here. So we've got this gasket oiled up. Now we can stick it in there. Cooking with gas now. I'm going to wait to put the air box in until I charge it because it'll be easier to get to the charging ports with the air box out. So I'm going to move to the inside of the cab now and get the dash put back in. Found a piece of hose that 10 millimeter bolt fits perfectly in, so let's see if we can get it in that hole. There it goes. Alright, I got it in the hole. Now I need to just get it started tightening. I think I've got a couple of threads engaged now. Perfect. We're going to go around and get all the others just like that. Okay, this one's going to be the biggest test to see if this works. So let's see if we can get this bolt in there now. Just sort of feeling around to try to find the hole. I really don't want to drop this screw because it took me about an hour to find it when I dropped it last time. Okay, it feels like the bolt finally started getting too tight for the rubber hose. So I'm going to try to pull the rubber hose off and hopefully the bolt stays in the hole. Yep, bolt's in the hole. Now I need to get my swivel. Got all the bolts started, so it's time to tighten down the dash. So I ended up figuring out that I can get my swivel in this way and it's less likely to scratch the paint on the edge of the door. So I'm trying to tighten this last bolt down here like this. Well, good morning. It's day 3 on the Super Duty Evaporator core. I'm going to start out today by unboxing my new vacuum pump. One of my friends watched my video on charging the AC last winter, and he commented that I needed to go buy one of these. If you saw my other video, you saw how much of a struggle it was to use that old vacuum pump. So I'm happy to have this new one now, and I just need to read and see how much of that oil I'm supposed to pour in there. I assume it goes in this red hole, but let me take care of that. I'll be right back. Well, this has been a nightmare. First of all, I couldn't get my 134 fitting adapter onto the low pressure charge port. Turns out the fitting wouldn't go on because the Schrader valve was not tightened down all the way. I went to O'Reilly and I bought a Schrader valve tool that said it was for air conditioning, but it looks like it's the size for a tire, and it didn't work. So I found an old pressure washer fitting and I made a new one. With the new tool, I was able to remove the Schrader valve from my old filter dryer that didn't fit the new filter dryer, but I took the spring off of it, and so now it looks like it's sealing up. So I'm going to draw a vacuum again and see if it works. Okay, it's been pumping down for about 30 minutes now. The gauge is reading minus 30 inches of mercury, which is quite a bit actually. So I'm going to shut this off now and we'll see if it holds that vacuum. Okay, I weighed in 27 ounces of refrigerant. If you want to watch a video on that, I've got another video that shows how to weigh in refrigerant. And so I'm going to start it up now and see how it works. Well, I lost the outro footage, but I wanted to let you guys know that the AC in my truck is working great. It's been about 5 weeks and it's still blowing ice cold air. So I've been doing a whole series on this truck, and if you've enjoyed my video, why don't you go ahead and hit the subscribe button so you'll catch the next one. God bless.